So tell me a little bit about how you discovered this technology and was like, this needs to be taken to the masses.
First of all, I'm not a doctor or even like I'm one of these guys that actually failed biology in high school. Like never thought I'd even be in the space. About 25 years ago, we started an anti-aging clinic almost by accident, my wife and I. And we were doing hormone replacement therapy. So we were optimizing testosterone and we had hired doctors to work for us. In 2015, we had read an article in Men's Health saying that is this the next Viagra? And what was happening is we're putting all these guys on testosterone. And so their libido's through the roof, but they can't perform in the bedroom. So they were asking the doctors to write prescriptions for Viagra or Cialis. But this article was saying that there's a machine that fixes erections. I'd never heard of it. So I took it to our medical director at the time, and he went through the studies. He read the article, started downloading all these studies. And there are literally hundreds of studies that show that this works.
And how does it work? Like, what is the technology to make it work?
So really simply, it's shockwave therapy. And this is technology that's been around for 70 or 80 years.
Wow, that long?
It's been around for a long time. It's used in lithotripsy, but it actually started in the 1940s during World War II. They would drop the depth charges in the ocean to get the submarines, and it would create sound waves. So what we're talking about here are sound waves. The sound waves would create pressure and it would blow up the submarines. So doctors in Europe, really, we're talking about Germany. After World War II, a lot of the Germans and Turks and all those doctors were studying how this could be used in the body. So they were using it to break up kidney stones. In the 1980s, they started using lithotripsy. Lithotripsy are these big machines. And apparently, I've never had a kidney stone. I don't know if you've ever had it, but apparently it's one of the most painful things
I've heard.
you can get. So they were using these machines to break up the kidney stone. So the energy would go deep into the machines at a high intensity sound wave. So when we're talking about a shock wave, it's...
And it's not painful because obviously I've done it. It's not painful.
It depends on the machine you're using.
Okay.
So there was a lot.
Yours isn't, yeah.
Ours isn't, but there was a lot we learned about this technology. So when they were using lithotripsy, they were using it at high intensity to break up hard matter. Mm-hmm. Starting in the 1990s, they started to create low intensity shock waves. So with a shock wave, it's really, there's two things. There's the sound you hear from the noise, but when you break the sound barrier, you hear a sonic boom. That sonic boom creates a pressure wave, and that pressure is what causes cellular changes. So in 2016, and again, I did not know any of this. So when I'm reading about shockwave therapy, we were doing something in our clinic at the time called a P-shot.
I've heard about the P-shot.
So P-shots where you're using PRP you're taking out your blood, you're spinning it, and then you're injecting it back into the body. Yeah. And that's really a form of regenerative therapy. Other forms of regenerative therapy would be stem cells. Now, when you're talking to guys that were used to taking a pill and you say, well, there's this other treatment called a P-shot. Guy is like, okay, well, what does it involve? Well, it involves a needle in your penis. Guys are like,
thanks, but no thanks.
I'll just take the pill.
Yeah.
I don't like the pill. Sometimes I forget to take the pill. Sometimes I take the pill and it's wasted because there was no intimacy, but they'll take the pill. Okay. And it gives me headaches.
Yeah, obviously, because you're like, do I want to inject something in my, private parts? It's freaking painful.
It is. If women actually were doing it with something called the O-shot. So the O-shot, and both of them do the same thing. What we're talking about is bringing in more blood flow. Mm-hmm. When you bring in more blood flow, you bring in the nutrients and all the healing agents, and you're affecting change at the cellular level. Yeah. That's the regenerative therapy. So when we read about shockwave, the first question is, well, shocking is more painful than a needle.
Yeah.
I don't think guys are going to like that. But we went about let's figure out how to get a machine here. It took us 3 months just to find a machine.
And where is a machine manufactured, and who came up with the actual technology for it?
Okay, so in 2016, we had a clinic in Aventura, and the machine we were using at the time was made in Germany. And it was a machine that has been around for about 20 years. When you look at the machine, it looks like a big, it's like a suitcase with a big pistol, and it sounds like a jackhammer.
Okay.
So the type of shockwave they would use would be it's like an air gun where they would shoot a bullet against a piece of metal, and then the sound would radiate outwards. So when we got the technology after 3 months, one, we didn't even know if it was going to work, even though we saw the clinical studies, and we had a ton of patients. So I lined up some of our best patients, and there was one of the guys was a guy who didn't like the Viagra. He tried the P-shot, got bruising. I said, "You're going to be the first guy to try this. We don't know if it's going to work." And by the way, this guy's a swinger.
Okay. Okay, so he's like, he's like, it's gotta function. I have 2 sexes to please over here.
Yeah, he's like, he goes to swinger parties. So he's like, "Look, if this works, we'll bring you a bunch of other swingers." So he comes in. Well, first of all, going back to the technology, and when we got the device, the first thing is because the device, all the energy's at the level of the skin, is very painful. So you're asking about pain. Because what happens is that the energy's highest at your skin and then it radiates outward. And they call these devices radial devices. And they're really not shockwaves because they don't break the barrier of sound. And again, a lot of this I learned later, but like the higher you dial up the energy, the less painful it is, which is actually paradox. It doesn't seem like it would make sense. And I learned later why that is. But in this case, we had to put numbing cream on his private parts to do this treatment. So he goes in, he sees the doctor, comes out. He said, "That was easy. Like it's not painful with the numbing cream." And it's actually not anywhere near as painful as a P-shot.
Yeah.
So he leaves. I said, "Call me the next day. Let me know."
Do you get more swingers for clients?
So I come into my office the next day and my voicemail light's going off. This is 2016 before, my voicemail at the office. And he's like, "Mark, this is Ron. You have to call me immediately." And I'm like,
You're
"God,
like, shit, what happened?"
Yeah, I'm like, if we screwed this guy up, this is not good. He's like, "Mark, I don't know what it is, but I had erections all night long and I haven't performed." And this is one treatment.
How many do people have to necessarily get?
So they have to do 6 treatments to 12 treatments. So the first thing is, he calls back. We have him come in to do his second treatment. And he's like, "This is amazing." And there's something with guys known as like a fractionary period where you have your orgasm and then guys lose their erection. And there's a period before they can get another erection. And depending on the guy and the age, that could be like some guys, it just doesn't come back until the next day. Some guys, it might be an hour. This guy's like, I got my erection back immediately. I was able to have another orgasm.
How old was this gentleman?
He was probably about 54, 55 years old.
Wow.
So I'm actually 55, but I was 45 or 46.
Yeah, okay.
So I actually went to our doctor. I said, "I got to try this." Because I was like, "What you're describing, this sounds too good to be true."
Was your wife happy?
She was.
Okay.
I was happy.
Yeah.
Like when you're a guy in your 40s and 50s, or you want to optimize your own body's natural potential.
Absolutely.
You don't want to feel like you're cheating using pills. That's the whole biohacking.
And this device that you used back then in 2016 in your clinic in Aventura has now obviously evolved to the one that I've been trying and that Mark Cuban tried, correct?
Well, it's a different type of technology.
Okay.
There were a lot of things that happened between 2016 and me talking to you 9 years later and having that device and treating Mark Cuban with like the best technology. Because what happened after that was we started treating other guys. And we got on the swingers and got into that little community. And I'm like, this is really good. Let's come up with a business strategy. So I'm an entrepreneur. I have my business operations. I'm an entrepreneur organization, EO. And I'm like putting on my hat of how do we grow this? Because the problem is with a lot of things like PRP, or a lot of other things out there is there's no way to incentivize a creator to create something unless you use some sort of intellectual property.
Yeah.
So what we did is we trademarked this GAINSWave. So instead of saying, hey, we have this thing that's called Shockwave therapy, and we're going to just sell it and people are going to come in, we slowed down a little bit. We said, this is called GAINSWave. These are the protocols. And we started marketing GAINSWave. And we did so many patients. And then I get a call from Ben Greenfield. Ben Greenfield's in Washington State. We're in Miami.
Yeah.
He's like, Mark, I heard about GAINSWave. And by the way, we're getting calls from guys all over the country. The problem is they're not going to fly.
Yeah, they want you to go to them. They're not going to come to you. And then you have to find providers and practitioners in their local hometowns.
Exactly. So here we are running this clinic. We have guys flying in to do GAINSWave, guys flying in to do P-shots. All these guys are doing testosterone, and we're a little clinic in Aventura. And then Ben Greenfield calls. He's like, I heard about this. I want to try it. He says, I'm going to come in. I'm going to try this. If I like it, I'm going to interview your doctor and we'll talk about it on an episode. If it doesn't work, you'll never hear from me again.
Yeah.
So he comes in. He goes and sees the doctor. That night, we went out for sushi. He's like, I'll call you the next. He's like, we had sushi. He's like, I have to go meet my grandma. She lives in Miami. I'll call you the next day. Calls me the next day. He's like, Mark, I was with my grandma popping erections while having dinner.
No.
So I'm like, this is going to be, no pun intended, but this can be big.
Oh my God.
Like I'm now my business hat's on. I'm like, how do we do this? So what we did is we came up with a business model of, so first we secured the rights to distribute that device to doctors.
And this was after one treatment that Ben had.
Yeah. So some guys, like I actually had effects after the first treatment. When you look at clinical studies, you're supposed to have anywhere from 6 to 12 treatments. And the clinical studies are very clear that there's an 80% success rate. Now, guys have erectile problems either because of hormones, because of psychology, like a lot of it with porn addiction and all that can affect the whole psychology of the erections. And the last one is physiology. It's the plumbing. This will fix the plumbing.
Okay.
Hormones will fix the hormones, but if if a guy's having psychological issues, it'll help with the confidence.
But I know what you mean.
So we ended up securing the rights to this machine. We said, this is GAINSWave, and we took this machine to a trade show. I said, if we sell a couple units, and we're selling these units for, I don't know, $35,000, $40,000, which is a lot to a doctor, and nobody's heard of this. And we came with our clinical studies. We ended up selling like 30 units.
Wow, in one conference.
It was the A4M in Las Vegas. It was 2016.
How long ago was it? 2016, okay.
And before that, nobody had heard of Shockwave. Nobody had heard of GAINSWave. And before I knew it, like we were everywhere. And it was a very, going back to like my entrepreneurial roots, there are a lot of things I wish we had done differently. And I think one is we should have gone slower because you couldn't manage the growth that was coming in and produce enough of these devices, or what was it? I think part of it was you have to have your operational game plan intact. You have to have the people.
Absolutely.
So after we signed up 30, these guys get trained, but there are only like 3 of us on the team. These guys start calling me, hey, Mark, I can't figure this out with my machine. Hey, so they're asking me questions. I'm like, look, I need, so I hired an account manager. Yeah. But we didn't even need salespeople because people would sell it to other doctors and they talk about it and stuff. Yeah, doctors would sell it to other doctors.
If you know me, you know I avoid seed oils like the plague. They're everywhere, even in snacks labeled as clean, organic, or healthy. But the truth is, they wreak havoc on your metabolism, your hormones, and make you super inflamed. That's why I'm obsessed with Prima, one of the few products I completely trust. Prima was created to push back against processed artificial foods and bring us back to real, nutritional, ancestral ingredients that actually nourish your body. It's packed with 100% grass-fed beef tallow, grass-fed collagen, and grass-fed whey protein, delivering bioavailable nutrients for muscle recovery, joint health, and overall vitality without any of the junk. No seed oils, no refined sugars, no artificial additives, and the best part is one of the few products that is certified seed oil safe, I always keep Prima stocked in my bag. It's my go-to post-workout between meetings or anytime I need an easy, high-quality protein boost. Getting in at least 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight can be really tough, but it's essential for building and maintaining muscle as you age or going through a fertility journey in your 40s and 30s like I am. And the flavor is delicious. Cacao, mocha, and salted caramel, you really can't go wrong. My favorite flavor is the salted caramel, plus the Prima bars are sweetened with organic raw honey and only contain organic whole food ingredients. So you're fueling your body with real clean nutrition. Because you're part of the Biohack-it community, you get 20% off. Just use code IMAN20 at eatprima.com. Ditch the seed oils, fuel your body right. You will feel the difference, I promise.
So how long did you have GAINSWave then?
So we still have, so GAINSWave is and that's, I think, the most confusing thing of GAINSWave versus machines. GAINSWave's a brand.
Okay.
What GAINSWave is it's the protocols on how to do shockwave therapy. So it's like the recipes, and it's the consumer-facing brand.
Okay. And OmniWave is not the consumer-facing brand, the one that I'm
OmniWave
getting.
is the machine.
Okay.
So
okay. Now I figured it out.
yeah,
Okay, I get it.
and I try to think of a lot of different analogies on how to describe it, because people in my office want to kill me because they're like, Mark, you have this brand and that brand,
Yeah.
and we had like at one time we had.
And why not just keep it as one name? Like, why don't you just call it GAINSWave and that's it?
That's where we're going. I mean, I think that's.
So my marketing entrepreneur has like, well, we should just call it one thing and call it a day. That's the thing it should be.
I think
it's so great.
I mean, I think you're 100% right. I think part of it was when we were like a year ago, when we were like, hey, because when you get these machines, we learned that there's so many more uses for it. So they're like, well,
Yeah.
should we create a different brand for this use or that use? So it was a learning experience.
I thought it was fascinating because not only like bringing more blood flow to an organ or a muscle or a tissue helps with that regenerative process,
Yes.
right? Which is why PRP works so well. And what was amazing was from pain management to scar tissue removal to fertility to, there are just so many uses to this device that I was just like, wow, like every organ, muscle, tissue, the more blood flow it gets, the better it functions. Like from a fertility aspect, from a fertility lens, when you're trying to conceive, everything is about bringing blood to the reproductive organs. That's why acupuncture is so good. That's why they tell you to keep like socks on and keep your feet warm. Make sure your uterus, your womb is always warm. So if you're able to do that by bringing in more blood flow, then that's essentially the same thing.
And blood is what's been healing mankind for millions of years.
Correct.
The problem is getting the blood to the right blood to the right place. That's
Right.
always the issue.
And so now how many people have you guys treated with GAINSWave / OmniWave?
I think when we're talking about like the treatments, we'll just say GAINSWave, and then I'll get into like why GAINSWave adopted OmniWave as their go-to
Yes.
machine. But I would say because we've trained over 2,000 doctors for GAINSWave. Ever since we introduced the OmniWave device, we've signed up we have about 120
Yeah.
physicians in the last year or so.
And
Put in OmniWave.
And did Ben actually interview your doctor to go on his podcast?
Yes, he did.
Oh, amazing. Okay. So if people want to listen to that interview, they should be able to go find it.
Yeah, the doctor at the time, it was Richard Gaines was our doctor. And which is another funny marketing story because his name was like Richard Gaines, Dick Gaines, GAINSWave.
no,
so it's like this is
What
like
does it
a
mean?
marketer's dream here. You know, it's like, okay, this is a lot. Great storytelling.
Why was his name that? Please tell me.
The doctor's name was Richard Gaines.
Yeah.
And so when we're like, because we, like marketers, you can take a doctor and really tell a story. So it's like, this is kind of a cool story how Dr. Dick Gaines looked at all these clinical studies and GAINSWave, but that's another.
Yeah.
So Dr. Gaines was on Ben Greenfield's podcast, and Dave Asprey reached out, and that's really what we're introduced to, like the world of
Biohacking. Yeah. Do you guys still do a lot of the conferences and stuff now even?
We do.
Because they've changed so much. I feel like they've only gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and more consumers are even going to these kind of conferences now.
Well, I think what's happened, is with social, well, I think there are two huge shifts. I mean, obviously social media, the way we get our knowledge, but I think what really pushed it over the edge is people don't trust mainstream medicine after COVID.
No, not at all.
I mean, people are like, well, they lied to us. What else are they lying?
But I
Are they
think
lying
people-
about this or that?
I also feel like people are looking at things to alternatively heal them that does not require pharmaceutical medication. They're looking to live longer, healthier, happier lives and looking for things to heal their bodies and be out of pain and be functioning at optimal. And in men's cases, that can also be their sexual wellness.
But I think everything, if you look at the incentive structure of anything, you can figure out what would happen. And the incentive structure of pharmaceuticals
Yeah.
is they don't make money off of dead people
They make
or healthy people.
Yeah, they make money off living people who are sick and keeping them sick.
So there's no incentive for anybody in big pharma or big medical to keep you healthy.
Absolutely.
So biohacking is based, in my mind, biohacking is here are all the things you can do to stay out of sick care and to stay out. Like this is how you can take care of yourself.
Optimize your health. What are some of the most common things? We know what men are using it for, like with tissue repair and all that stuff with aches and pains. What are some of the most common things women are using this for?
They're using it for urinary incontinence, pain during intercourse, rebuilding the pelvic floor.
After childbirth?
After childbirth,
Okay.
yes.
And how many sessions does something like that take?
So typically it's 6 sessions.
Okay. So that's 6 to 12 is the standard of care
Correct.
for no matter what you come up with. Okay. So
Correct.
they're doing it for pelvic floor and what else?
So those are probably the biggest ones. Also more lubrication during sex, so they're not dry. It helps with that nerve sensitivity.
Yeah. Okay.
So the orgasms are more enjoyable.
Okay.
And I assume that would be the same because with a female, like it's essentially the same thing.
Are there any human clinical trials actually done on the device or being done on the device or this type of technology?
So we didn't know that there were different types of technologies.
Right.
So it's 2017 now, and we're selling these devices. We're training a ton of doctors. I'm meeting now urologists are coming to us. All the like we're going to all these different conferences. But then I learned that there's 2 types of technologies, and they're very different. The radial devices, all the energy is concentrated
In that one area.
and then radiates out. But then they have a focus device. A focus device is a device that can focus under your skin and create energy deeper. And this one's actually now you start getting into true shockwaves.
So that's the painful one.
No, the radial device is painful. So the focus device, because the rise time is how long it takes to
get it to that
get
frequency.
it in there. So if you use the right technology within focus, you get down to like 2 or 3 nanoseconds,
Right.
like so fast that you can't feel any pain. And I think that was the biggest aha moment. So with GAINSWave, we started understanding different technologies, and all these other device companies entered the market. Some had been around for a long time and started to come back into the market. So GAINSWave had created this big market around Shockwave for sexual wellness, for ED. And people start using it for women, and women are getting good results. And we're trying to keep up. And I think going back to what would we have done different, not just growing too fast, was really understanding the technology first and making sure doctors were using the right machines. Because there are some technologies that are really good, and the ones that are really good you can use for muscle skeletal. You can use it for recovery, performance. You can use it for, like I actually saw a study 2 weeks ago that they're using it to create blood flow in the brain for Parkinson's.
Alzheimer's and Parkinson's,
Like I'm ADHD, so I had a little bit done to see if I could focus. I'm like, I think so.
Yeah. Do you think it can also help with getting the mitochondrial health restarted? Because if there's more blood flow going to mitochondrial receptors, right? And that helps obviously create more ATP. So what that could do for overall health and longevity would be interesting.
It would be. I think like we've talked to our medical team about creating like a full body regenerative therapy, kind of like a stem cell drip. That's
but doing it like essentially like a full body thing. You go in and it does the entire body, like a bed or something like that.
Well, you have PEMF, which is kind of like that,
Yeah.
or I guess red light would be like that. But when you're talking to doctors who have studied like acupuncture. So
Yes.
we met this incredible doctor a few months ago. His name's Dr. Viet Le. He was actually just with us at this last trade show, but he is he's like an integrative functional medicine doctor who has studied Eastern medicine, and he gets into like trigger points. Like in acupuncture, it's all about like hitting these certain trigger points. So he's working with his patients on like a full body version of this. So there's a lot of things that are exciting that we're doing with this device that we'd like to roll out.
So with people, you can obviously say, we've said Ben Greenfield and Dave Asprey, we know Mark Cuban tried this. Who else are you allowed to say who've been some of the biggest people who've tried this device that the audience might know their names and enjoyed it? Like they're like, okay, we're sold on this.
I'll tell you a funny story.
Yes.
So it's 2019, 2020. Now we've moved into this bigger place. We're training doctors. I think it was before COVID. I'm not really sure. I walk downstairs of our building and I see Dennis Rodman, holding court with some friends, having drinks. And I go up to Dennis, don't know him, but I tell him about this device because like Dennis Rodman's famous for breaking his penis. I don't know if you heard that.
I didn't know the story. How did he break his penis? How do you break your penis?
I guess overuse. I don't know. I don't know. It's a famous story. Like I don't know.
It is? We need to pull this up. Like my
you guys
audience
can pull
needs
it
to
up.
know about this.
He
broke it like it broke? How do you break a penis? I'm not a guy, so I obviously don't have the answer to this, but how do you break a penis?
I don't know because I don't.
Wait, I'll find this out. So you went up to him and you're like, hey, buddy.
I guess it's the more you use it. I don't like if we could pull up the internet, you could probably find the story right now.
I'm gonna get my team to pull this up.
You
So wait, you went up to him and you're like, hey, we have this device that can fix your broken penis.
Well, I didn't mention the broken penis to Dennis.
You didn't. You're just like,
I just know like this guy like is so. But you're asking me about famous people. I'm like, hey, we have this treatment. I'd love to have you come up and try it. We also had a full age management clinic.
Yeah.
So,
and by the way, for anybody listening, the actual treatment really doesn't take long at all. It's like, I think 15, 20 minutes in and out. Like that's how long it takes. So
he actually, I convinced him somehow to come.
Then and there.
Then I said, hey, and he doesn't know me. And I'm sure he gets like people just approach him about all this crazy stuff. And I told him, I said, come on upstairs. It'll take 5 minutes of your time. I promise not to waste it. And I went back up and then he comes in.
Yeah.
And the doctor did a treatment. And then the guy, like we got videos of him talking about how amazing it is. Like we got
after the fact.
After, not there.
And then how many treatments did he get?
I don't know. I mean, he kept coming back. So
okay. So
because we had a whole medical team, and he would come in and he would also get like IVs. And the hormones.
And where is your current like office and all based right now?
So we're in Aventura. You're
still in Aventura. Okay.
Yeah, we ended up selling our clinic to 10X Health.
Okay.
And that was in 2022 because we wanted to focus on
the device.
It wasn't just the device. We were learning a lot. So going back to like, how did we get into like where we're treating Mark Cuban with this amazing device? And it was like, we learned from other doctors, like the technology is old. Like all these technologies that we had were all
outdated.
They're all 1990s, early 2000s built.
And why do you think that is? Can I ask you, like, why do we think the technology is so old and is it because we're not getting funding for new research like this because people aren't invested previously prior to this administration? Like, I could be completely guessing. I don't know.
I'll tell you what I think it is, and it gets back also to the incentive structure, is in medicine.
That's what I mean, yeah.
So in medicine, if you go through the R&D of getting a pill and bring it to market, because what happens
There's
with
more money to be made.
Well, with the FDA, you have to have a label. Like everything has to be, this is FDA approved. And in medicine, if you get something FDA approved, you have a monopoly for
whatever it is.
20 years.
If something is FDA approved, how long does that stamp of approval last before you have to rerun research and again present new data for it to be approved?
The FDA approved, you get your FDA approval, but the problem is it costs millions of dollars. So if, let's say you wanted to get Shockwave therapy FDA approved for
erectile
ED.
dysfunction, yeah.
First of all, it would cost you millions of dollars to do so. The moment you do it, everybody else can enter the market based on the work you did. So because of that, machines that are out there. So when we're talking about shockwave therapy for ED, it's not FDA approved for ED. It's FDA approved for blood flow. It's
Right,
FDA approved for aches and pains.
Okay.
So,
but what if somebody IP'd the device, right? And then, because it was their technology for how they came up with it, and then went to do, let's say they had the millions of dollars to throw at it, and then went and threw the money at it, and then it got FDA approved, would they not be covered then? Or do you think somebody else is just going to come out and...
well, you can IP, so you can use either trademarks, which is what we did with GAINSWave.
Right.
And that's one moat that you can create around it. Or you can create something that's unique and get a patent on it,
Okay.
which is something we are in the process of doing with OmniWave.
Okay.
And I'll get into that. But in 2019, we're learning about the different types of devices. There's focused and there's radial. And even the focused devices that were on the market are all older devices from 1990s, early 2000s. And we're trying to come up with the best device. And I'm meeting with all these doctors, and they're all, every device was like, this one's good, but it's not portable. Or this one
doesn't have the
this one is
efficacy
painful,
of
or
this
this
one.
one's
and this one's
not.
better. Yeah.
And they're all made, by the way, either in Europe or in China.
Oh, yeah. By the way, one of the things that I've noticed, because I went to Health Optimization Summit right now to the conference, some of the best technology in that place, on the best devices, gadgets, and ones that had the best research against them and really like were sturdy, everything is made in Europe, out of Germany, out of Switzerland. Like it was crazy. And I was like, wow, like there we are thinking America's the land of innovation, especially when it comes to health and wellness. But all this technology is coming out of Europe. But because their consumer market is not that big, America is like the home to all the biggest consumer market in the world. They come up with it. The scientists are creating it, whatever it may be, the researchers, and then they're bringing it here and selling it to the Americans. So it was crazy to me. I was like, wow, like it's insane to see how much of the technology in gadgets in health and wellness are coming from other countries.
Yeah, I mean, it was surprising because almost all the shockwave devices that are of good quality were either from Israel or from Germany.
Yeah.
And then like Turkey makes a lot of devices, which you wouldn't necessarily think offhand.
What about the Chinese?
Chinese are great at copying. I don't think the Chinese make anything, but you'll take a device, you bring it to China, and they'll make a copy of it.
Yeah.
And so what was happening at the time was all these Chinese knockoffs started entering the marketplace.
Oh God, yeah.
Like $2,000 for a machine, and it was like crap machines. And so we wanted to make a really good device, and we had talked to our doctors, and at the time we were also like trying to build this company. We were also running a clinic up in Aventura. We had 40 employees. We had a medical team, very operational. And so we made the decision to sell this age management clinic and use that to
go into these devices. Yeah. As someone who's testing and always retesting for what works for my gut, immune system, and hormonal health, I definitely do not mess around with any probiotics that die before they even reach my gut. So this little guy, Just Thrive, is completely different. It is clinically proven to arrive 100% alive, survives antibiotics, and even helps to heal leaky gut in just 30 days. It beats bloat, helps with nutrition absorption, and turns your gut into an antioxidant factory. And it's the only probiotic I trust and recommend to my Biohack-it community. Check it out at justthrivehealth.com and use code Biohack-it for a discount and enjoy. Are the devices currently right now still manufactured in Germany?
So the device we created is manufactured here in Florida.
Amazing. Okay.
It's
incredible. So you took the technology, you took everything you've learned, and you're like, we're going to make this in America now.
Correct.
So no tariffs are affecting you
No
guys.
tariffs are affecting us.
Thank God.
And so like it's 2022 and we have met with a technology team that we had worked with. And we said, look, we want to create a prototype of a device because what I had learned too is if you got the rise time high, it shouldn't create pain.
Right.
Because even the best devices were painful.
Yeah.
They weren't engineered for comfort. They were engineered to,
of course.
for efficacy, but not comfort. So they're like, if we create this rise time high enough and we use the spark in water, which is called electrohydraulic technology, and we put in this volt, and again, I'm not an engineer, but like they're walking me through it and they're saying, we can create a device that will be engineered for comfort. And I'm like, that's a game changer.
Yeah, of course. 100%.
It's a huge game changer. So they brought us the prototype in 2023. It's now November 2023. And we actually had 5 prototypes made. And the funniest thing is I'm thinking about using this for sexual wellness. At the same time, I was dealing with, I love to run, but I was dealing with plantar fasciitis, and I was dealing with a tendon right here under the bone. And, like I had not been able to run for literally a year. And we had the device sitting there for weeks, and like people were trying it. I'm like, I'm going to try this on my ankle. Like I didn't even think
about it. Yeah.
I tried it on my ankle, and literally the pain went away. And then I did 2 treatments. I was running again. And at the time, I'm like, this is GAINSWave. This device will be used for GAINSWave for the sexual wellness. But then when we saw this when you think about the opportunity, it's like, this is full body regenerative therapy. It's not just sexual wellness. It's going to be huge. So we sold out of those prototypes in 2023, and we went into full manufacturing and started delivering last summer. It was when we really started making deliveries.
Your own devices, yeah.
And
how much is the device now? The one that I've tried, the Mark tried, how much is that one?
So that sells to physicians or to practitioners for $79,000.
And then can the average consumer also, like, if I wanted to get one for my house, can I or no?
Your doctor can get one and get trained on it, and you can put it in your house as long as it's a piece of medical equipment. So we have people. I have one in my house.
Yeah.
Like I have one in my bedroom. My wife was using it this morning after yoga. We have a few people who have purchased it for their house, but they only can do so with the doctor's name on the order.
Right. The doctors. And is that because what's coming out of it is so powerful, you don't want there to be any sort of like,
so when you
need to be trained on it.
I mean, part of it is liability purposes.
Okay.
I mean, you're talking about a piece of medical equipment. There's things that you don't want to put this on a pacemaker.
Yeah, of course.
There's things you can't do.
So it's not for the mass market. Yeah.
And that's also if you break it. Like you really have to understand the technology. So we made the decision that we will sell this to licensed practitioners or to businesses that have a licensed practitioner that will get trained on it.
That totally makes sense. And can you use this? I mean, I have pets, so can you use this on your animals?
That's another great. So yes, absolutely. You could use, where it's really, there's a lot where it's really big is horses.
Oh, really? On their tendons and their joints?
Yeah,
or where?
I mean, like a racehorse, and I've looked at this market. It's it's a very big marketplace. Like a racehorse is very valuable.
Yeah.
And they can fix horses' legs that have issues. Now, I know nothing about the veterinarian world, but I have spoken to people who understand that. There are some devices already being used for
a different version of it. Yeah.
It's a different version. We think that humans, let's get the human market first, and then my marketing director will kill me if I say we're doing horses tomorrow. So we're not doing horses tomorrow.
So what is it, Mark, for you? Where do you see the future of what you're building going, and what do you see in the next evolution of this business? Because you guys are now manufacturing your own devices. They're manufactured in the US. You're distributing them to doctors. We've gone over all the incredible stuff they can treat. What is your vision for this company?
So the vision is that when you are thinking about, you have a pain or you have something that triggers, the vision is that you'll think about GAINSWave as your go-to for whatever's going on, and that you'll be able to find a well-trained provider immediately who's been trained in the protocols, who's using the best device, which is OmniWave, and they'll fix you in 5 minutes or less. And it's like something like a brand you think about.
Yeah. So it becomes a household name.
Becomes a household name.
What is the biggest saturation of practitioners? Where can people find the most practitioners trained on OmniWave?
In terms of geography, or we have a lot like in Central Florida, for some reason in Miami, we don't have a lot of practitioners in Miami.
Well, the practitioner market isn't that big here.
10X Health has one.
Yeah.
But we don't have a lot. We have a lot in the Tampa, Clearwater area.
Okay.
I know we have a lot in Texas.
Okay.
Like I think Houston, we have a lot. Southern.
But that's how Mark had heard about it as well. He'd heard about it in Dallas.
So if you go to GAINSWave, we have providers all over the country, but the providers who have either upgraded to this new device or have the new device, we have them Texas, California, Florida, New York, New Jersey. But our goal is to have them all over. Like we have a nice map with little dots. I'm like, let's just fill this up.
I just thought this whole technology was so fascinating. I mean, I'm trying it obviously for fertility at this stage. I'm like, I want to do everything to bring circulation to my reproductive organs. I want to do everything to keep them fired up and going. And I just thought the connection of what it could do was so interesting. And then obviously Mark had heard about it, so we made him try it. And I just love what you guys are building as a company, but I also am fascinated with this technology that instead of taking an opioid, which people take so commonly for pain management, you can go in under 5 minutes, get treated for severe pain for something, and it can go away just by using essentially shockwaves.
Yeah, it's funny that technology exists.
And they haven't done more in the last 20 to 30 years to like push the research forward because they're just not incentivized because of pharmaceutical companies.
That too. And even big hospitals, like I've talked to orthopedic doctors that make their money replacing joints.
Yeah.
And they want nothing to do with something that's going to get you out of pain.
Right, no, because they're in it to make money. Like, it's just really sad. This morning I interviewed an incredible doctor who's an expert in women's health and hormones. And I was talking to her and I was like, her name is Dr. Carrie Jones. And I said to her, I was like, Carrie Jones, like, why is it that so many traditional OBGYNs are not checking for certain hormone panels and trying to figure out the root cause of like, hey, if somebody has like showing signs of Hashimoto's or hyperactive thyroid, they're like, no, they don't care. They're trained to just put you on some sort of medication. They're not interested in getting to the root cause of what is making you sick and treating that. But that just shows how deeply broken the American healthcare system is. And that mentality has to shift. And I don't know if it's going to shift immediately, but it's going to take a lot of time to unravel.
Yeah. An interesting story too is, I was talking to this Dr. Lay and, he's like, Mark, I noticed your gait's off. I'm like, yeah, I fell a few years ago. I had hurt my hip in a bicycle accident. I've been using OmniWave, our machine. It helps with it, but it doesn't seem to ever go away. And I had an MRI done and it shows like you're bone on bone and there's not much you can do. And he's like, he goes, have you had a root canal recently? I said, in fact, I have, but what does that have to do with my
Your
hip?
mouth is connected to every part of your mouth is correlated to a different organ in your body and a different part of your body.
So he says, do me a favor. And this was last week. And he goes, go to your dentist and get a CAT scan of your jaw.
Yeah. Inflammation.
So I go, this all happened. This is what I'm going through this week, but it gets back into what you're saying about how nothing's connected. So I go, I get this thing done. My dentist is like, why are you telling me what to do? I'm your I should be
You're like, no, I'm asking.
I said, this is what I want.
Yeah.
So he does that. And he sends that to Dr. Lay up in, this guy's in Vienna, Virginia. And he texts me, says, look, you have an inflammation pocket here and you have one.
That's correlating.
So I said, what do I do? He's like, you have to get your tooth extracted. I said,
because you should have not got that filling to begin with.
Right. So I go back to my dentist and the dentist thinks I'm crazy. Like,
yeah,
he's
obviously.
like, so the first question, he's like, well, who is this doctor? I said, he's a functional medicine doctor.
He's like, he's a quack.
Yeah. So, and he's like, my job is to do root canals, not, my job's to save your tooth, not to pull your tooth.
Yeah. But if you're doing a root canal with material that's hazardous to my overall health with what they put in to do a root canal, it's damaging my body even further.
Yeah. There was actually, so I actually talked to I know a lot of doctors. So I talked to my other doctor.
Yeah.
He's MDVIP, Dr. Michael Braun, great doctor in Aventura. And he's like, root canals because what makes you older is inflammation, not years.
Absolutely. 100%.
So I'm in the process of trying to figure out what to do with my tooth.
So it's so crazy to me because we've talked about microbiome health and stuff, but we haven't talked about your oral microbiome enough. Your oral microbiome is the first point of entry and production of your entire immune system, right? It starts over here. And a dysregulated oral microbiome with not the right kind of like ebbs and flows to it can lead to things like certain cancers.
Right.
And now functional oncologists, yes, guys, functional oncologists do exist, integrative oncologists are starting to make that connection really quickly. And so your mouth, your microbiome, your oral health is so freaking important. So it's not only about using toothpaste without fluoride,
Right.
it's about keeping your mouth, your actual like mouth healthy. So things like oil pulling, making sure you're flossing correctly, making sure you're using a toothpaste that helps balance your oral microbiome health. All of this stuff matters because your mouth correlates to different organs and different parts of your body. And there's clear research on this. But again, the typical medical system is not trained to want to promote this message or care to be taught about this stuff.
Plus, it's all silos. Like my dentist only knows my mouth.
And only knows how to do what they know how to do, and that's it.
That's why I think like what you like this whole call it what you will, biohacking movement, functional medicine.
Yeah, because functional medicine is looking at the root cause of everything and how your body works as a whole system.
It makes so much sense. And when you look at Asian medicine,
they're years more advanced.
You know, in Asia, in China, and I've been told this, so I don't, we can fact check this too, but I've been told that doctors are actually incentivized to keep people healthy. So like if they have a group of patients and patients start to get sick, then it's a problem. It's a problem. Whereas here, it's like they're incentivized to keep you sick. They don't make money off of you. If
the medical system, I always think about this. I said, where in American history did we take such a hard turn to such institutionalized corruption that we were incentivizing doctors and hospitals, and even how doctors are being taught in schools and medical schools, the curriculum, everything became bought and paid for. And everything became just so corrupt that it blows my mind. And you look at other countries which are really invested into the health of their citizens from that lens. And then you have the US, which
insane.
has been turned upside down to keep you chronically sick.
Yeah,
and we are the quacks out here. They're like, oh, the guys who are trying to like actually figure out their biology and stay healthy and not be in one pharmaceutical medicine or the other. We're the crazy ones. We are not the normal, which we should be the norm.
It's nuts when those families that created OxyContin make billions and billions
and by the way,
of
nobody
dollars.
went to jail.
Nobody knows.
Nobody went to jail.
Oh, we're
going
to pay a $7 billion fine, and they're worth $20 billion. And
but I think it's also when you look at where a lot of even the best Ivy League medical schools, everyone's dying to get into where a lot of their curriculum comes from, where a lot of their funding is coming from, who's backing the research. 70 to 90% of research and studies coming out are backed by pharmaceutical companies under some advisory board or under some sort of other entity that they start, but that's where it's coming from.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I think, so when we're looking at like where we are with politics, and you have RFK now, who cannot be, I don't think he can be bought off by pharmaceutical drugs. That's at least it's a move in the right direction.
Yeah, it is 100% a move in the right direction. I think it's going to take years I always tell people to be kind with this current administration, with HHS and everything that they're doing, because what they're trying to do is dismantle 20, 30 years of corruption. And it's not just going to happen sitting in 4 years, It can't be changed and shifted overnight.
The biggest change right now are people like yourself and Ben Greenfield and Dave Asprey, and people that have giant influence that are going directly to the public and talking about these things.
Stuff and how it's so damaging.
That's how it starts.
Yeah,
that's how you make change.
And that's what's important. And that's why I'm so excited about your technology and your device. And I wanted to invite you on the podcast because I just loved all the different things they can treat that really impact the quality of someone's life and help them lead healthier, happier lives. Like, that's it. So thank you so much for coming on the show, by the way. I'd love to have you on, and I've loved talking to you and learning more about the backstory because I was curious, right? I was like, tell me a little bit about how this all got started. So thank you for that.
No, this is fun. Amazing. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
You. And then where can everybody find you guys?
So if you want to find a provider that are doing the sexual wellness, go to GAINSWave.com.
Okay.
And you'll see all the providers doing it. If you want to learn more about the device, if you're a practitioner looking to bring the device in, or if you're somebody who just wants to geek out about the device, OmniWave.com. It's OmniWave is the name of the device. GAINSWave is where you'll find all the protocols that the device can be used for.
Incredible. And Instagram is omniwave.com.
It is.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Mark, for being on the show.
It was awesome.
Thank you for tuning into Biohack-it. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a short review. It really helps us reach more listeners just like you. Follow us on Instagram at biohack-it for exclusive content and the latest updates. Remember, your health is in your hand and curiosity heals.